The screens in the Nevada Command Center glowed with red warnings. Foster stared at the data stream coming from a mining colony on 442b, over 400 light-years away from Earth. The signal was broken and weak, but the message was clear. Something terrible had happened. Was the commander of Earth's Space Defense Force, a position that few people took seriously. For years, governments had treated him like a man preparing for a war that would never come. Now, as he watched the data, he knew everything was about to change. The signal came from Colony 7, a human settlement that housed 2,000 miners and scientists. They had been searching for rare minerals that Earth needed for new technology. The message was not from colony leaders. It came from a young engineer named Davis who was hiding in the lower tunnels. His voice was shaking. He spoke in short, quick words. Explained that a massive fleet had appeared in the sky. The ships were not human. They were not any species that humanity had ever seen. They attacked without warning. They did not try to talk. They did not ask for anything. They simply destroyed. Within hours, the colony's defenses were useless. The military section was gone. Most of the colonists were dead. Said that the invaders were not interested in stealing resources or taking prisoners. They wanted to consume everything. They ate metal, plastic, stone, and flesh. They transformed all of it into something that fed their endless hunger for expansion, called them the Collective. He had heard some aliens talking near the colony before he hid. That name appeared in their communications. The signal cut out, tried to reopen it, but nothing came back. Colony 7 was gone. Turned to his team. Lisa Grant was his best military strategist. She had studied war, defense, and human history for 20 years. Her face was hard as she read the same data, was the head of physics and unconventional problem solving. He sat quietly, his mind already working through what this meant. "Is it real?" asked Lisa. "Could it be a malfunction, a mistake in the data?" The signal came from Davis, said. "I knew him. He was not a man who would lie or panic. That was a genuine message from a real person in danger." Leaned forward. "If what he said is true, then we are looking at something that the Galactic Council has been afraid of for centuries. A consuming species, a force that does not negotiate or build. It only destroys and grows." Nodded. The Galactic Council was a group of advanced alien species that had made contact with Earth 5 years ago. They had offered technology, science, and peace. They had also offered protection from threats in space. In exchange, they wanted Earth to follow their rules and accept their authority. Most of Earth's governments had agreed, believing that the Council could keep them safe. But had studied the Council's history. He had learned about their fears. They spoke carefully about a threat that moved through the galaxy, consuming colonies and destroying entire civilizations. They called it the Collective. They said it was an old problem, something they had contained in the far regions of space. The Council claimed the threat was under control. Had never believed that. Now he knew he was right. "We need to contact the Council," said Lisa. "We need to tell them what happened and ask for their help." "I will do that," replied. "But I want you both to understand something. The Council does not see us as equals. They see us as children. They will not send their best forces to protect a human colony. They will send money and maybe some soldiers. They will tell us that this is an acceptable loss. They will tell us that Earth must do better at protecting itself." Spoke quietly. "So what do we do?" Stood and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the New Mexico desert. Beyond it, the Earth continued. Cities with millions of people, families who knew nothing about the danger coming. Governments that would not believe him. A species that had survived on a harsh world for millions of years but had never prepared for a threat from the stars. "We prepare," said. "We do what humans have always done when faced with the impossible. We adapt. We innovate. We find new ways to solve old problems. The Council thinks we are weak because we do not have their technology. They think our emotions make us slow and unreliable. They do not understand that these things are our strength." Turned back to his team. "Lisa, I need you to develop a defense strategy that uses human thinking, not alien thinking. What would we do if we were trapped with limited resources and faced an enemy that was stronger and more advanced? I need you to work on weapons and technology that uses human creativity, not copies of what the Council uses. Something new, something they would not expect." United Nations Assembly Hall in New York was packed with world leaders. Screens displayed the message from Davis, the last transmission from Colony 7. The room fell into chaos as Foster finished his presentation. Nations argued. Some leaders demanded immediate action. Others said the threat was not real. Some wanted to hide from it entirely. An ambassador from Russia stood up. Commander Foster, you are asking us to mobilize our military forces based on a signal from across the galaxy. How do we know this is genuine? How do we know this is not some trick from the Galactic Council to increase their control over Earth? Remained calm. The colony is gone. We have confirmed that through our satellite systems, the energy signatures are unique. This is not Council technology. This is something else, something that they do not control. A Chinese general spoke next. And what does the Galactic Council say about this threat? Have they sent ships? Have they sent forces to help? The Council has acknowledged the signal, said. They are sending an official delegation to assess our situation. They arrive tomorrow. The room erupted in more argument. Watch the chaos with a clear mind. Humanity was afraid. Fear made people slow and uncertain. Fear made them doubt their own ability to survive, knew that his first job was not to fight the collective. His first job was to make humanity believe in itself. The next day, the Galactic Council's delegation arrived at the assembly. They came in a ship that hung above New York like a piece of the night sky. 5 alien representatives stepped out into the hall. One of them was Ambassador, the Council's leader, was a being made of crystal and light. His body did not move like flesh. It moved like geometry, sharp and angular. Did not shake hands or follow human customs of greeting. He simply looked at the assembled leaders with something that might have been eyes. We acknowledge your notification, said. His voice sounded like metal scraping on stone. The collective is a known threat. We have contained it for many years. One colony is a small loss. Acceptable. Felt anger rise in his chest. Acceptable loss. 2,000 people dead and the Council called it acceptable, but he kept his face calm. Commander Foster has proposed that Earth contribute to the defense effort, said a younger alien named, came from a species called the. His skin shimmered with soft colors. He was smaller than less threatening. His voice was gentle. The Council wonders what Earth could possibly offer. Your technology is primitive. Your military forces are weak by galactic standards. Lisa Grant stood up. She carried a data pad with her defense proposal. Ambassador, honored delegates, I understand that Earth's technology is less advanced, but human beings have a long history of solving impossible problems with limited resources. We have survived on a harsh world. We have fought wars using creativity and adaptation. We propose a defense strategy that does not rely on copying your technology. It relies on something you do not have. And what is that? Asked, his voice filled with what sounded like mockery. Lateral thinking, said. Humans think differently than your species. We make connections that are not logical. We take risks. We innovate. We find solutions where others see only problems. Stepped forward. I would like to hear this proposal in detail. For the next hour, Lisa explained the defense strategy. It was not like Council strategies. It did not rely on overwhelming force or perfect information. Instead, it focused on speed, adaptation, and surprise. Humans would set up networks of defense that could change and learn. They would use the collective's own hunger against it. They would strike from unexpected angles. Most of the Council delegates dismissed it as foolish, but listened carefully. Something in his expression changed as he heard the proposal. His colors shifted to brighter shades. I believe this is worth trying, said. The collective has defeated us for centuries by being predictable. We use the same strategies every time. Perhaps human unpredictability is exactly what we need. Was silent for a long moment. His crystal body caught the light and threw it across the room in broken patterns. Very well, he finally said. Earth will be allowed to contribute to the defense effort, but understand this. If you fail, if your creativity is not enough, the consequences for your species will be severe. The collective will consume your world. There will be no humans left to rescue. You will have destroyed your own people with your arrogance. Felt the weight of that responsibility settle on his shoulders. The entire future of humanity now rested on his decisions. One mistake, one wrong strategy, and everyone he loved would be gone. We understand the stakes, said quietly. Over the next week, governments around the world began to mobilize. Military forces prepared, visited the lunar base often. At first, thought it was because the young was following orders from the Council. But as time passed, realized that was genuinely interested in understanding humanity. He asked questions. He listened to answers. He watched human soldiers train with intense focus. One day asked about human family. Your species spends enormous energy protecting children, observed. Children are not productive for many years. They consume resources, yet humans are willing to die for them. This is inefficient. Looked at the young alien. It is not about efficiency, he said. A child represents hope. When we protect a child, we are protecting our future. We are saying that something matters more than our own survival. That is what makes us human. His colors shifted to a soft purple, was learning to read emotions in those color changes. Purple meant confusion mixed with curiosity. This is why I believe humans can succeed, said finally. Because you care about things that logic says you should not care about. This makes you unpredictable. The collective understands logic, it understands hunger, it understands consumption, but it does not understand sacrifice. It does not understand love. These things will confuse it. The alliance between Earth and the Galactic Council grew stronger. But it was not easy. Alien soldiers did not trust human tactics. Human pilots could not always understand alien technology. There were arguments and failures, but there were also victories. Cooper was a fighter pilot from Texas. She had been flying aircraft since she was old enough to reach the controls. When she first flew an alien fighter craft, she thought it would be impossible. The ship was controlled by thoughts, not hands. The weapons were designed for alien biology, but was a human who refused to accept limitations. She practiced for weeks. She studied how the ship responded to thought patterns. She found ways to make the alien technology work for human instinct. Then came the moment when the collective sent probe ships to test Earth's defenses. The probes were small but deadly. They moved faster than anything humans had ever built. The alien pilots in the Council forces tried to engage them with standard tactics. They failed. The probes destroyed one alien fighter after another. The Council commander called for retreat. Requested permission to try something different. The commander reluctantly agreed. What did humanity have to lose? The answer was everything, but he was desperate. Took her fighter into the asteroid field where the probes were operating. She did not try to fight them head-to-head. Instead, she used the asteroids as cover. She moved in ways that seemed reckless and illogical. She dove through narrow passages at speeds that should have destroyed her ship. She used the gravity of passing rocks to sling around corners faster than the probes could follow. The alien commander watched in shock as maneuvered herself behind the probes. She fired. One destroyed, then another, then another. Within 10 minutes, all 5 probes were gone, brought her damaged fighter back to the base. When she landed, the entire hangar erupted in cheers. But more important than the cheers was what happened next. The alien pilots asked to teach them her tactics. They wanted to learn from her. They wanted to understand how a human could think in ways that technology said was impossible. Doctor worked in the research facility with alien scientists. He had a particular challenge. The collective would be hard to kill with traditional weapons. Its ships could regenerate. Its forces could adapt faster than expected. Needed to create something new. He proposed a hybrid defense system that used both human intuition and alien technology. The aliens thought this was impossible. Intuition was not science, but explained that human intuition was actually the brain recognizing patterns that logic had not yet discovered. If they could build machines that learned from human intuition, they could create a defense that adapted faster than anything the collective had ever faced. The alien scientists were skeptical, but supported the project, and slowly they began to build it. The system would learn from each encounter with the threat. It would adjust and change. It would become smarter with every battle. 3 months after the probe attacks, called for a meeting with world leaders. He stood before them at his side. Behind them, screens showed images of new ships being built, new defenses being created, new alliances being formed. The collective is coming, said simply. The Council estimates that they will arrive in the next few weeks. When they do, Earth and our alien allies will stand together. This is not just humanity's fight. This is a fight for every species that values life over consumption. He paused and looked at each leader. The collective arrived like a wave of darkness. Its ships filled the sky above Earth's orbital space. There were thousands of them. They moved with terrible purpose, consuming asteroids and space stations as they advanced. The Council's early detection systems had been accurate. The threat was real. The danger was here. Foster sat in the command center above the moon. Around him, screens displayed the entire battlefield. Human forces were positioned across the solar system. Alien allies held key locations. The hybrid defense system that had built was online and learning. The first attack came with brutal speed. The collective's main fleet moved toward the inner planets. Council forces moved to intercept. The alien commanders had studied this enemy for centuries. They knew what to expect. They used the same strategies that had worked before, and those strategies failed. The collective did not fight the way the Council expected. Its forces adapted to every tactic. Its ships maneuvered in ways that should have been impossible. Within the first hour, 3 alien battle cruisers were destroyed. The Council's defense line was breaking. Watched the data and made a decision. Send Cooper and the human fighter wing, now. The Council commander protested. Your forces are untested. They will be destroyed. They will do what the rest of us cannot, replied. Send them. Cooper received her orders. She was not afraid. She had trained for this moment. She gathered her wing of 20 human pilots. Each one had learned new ways of thinking. Each one had practiced the impossible. Together, they launched toward the enemy fleet. What happened next shocked everyone watching. The human pilots did not fight like the Council forces. They did not line up in organized formations. They scattered. They moved in unpredictable patterns. They dove into the gaps between enemy ships. They struck from angles where the collective could not respond quickly enough. Herself took on 3 fighters simultaneously. She moved her ship through a series of maneuvers that made no logical sense. The fighters could not predict her movements. She destroyed them all. One by one, the human pilots proved that adaptation went both ways. The collective could change and respond to enemy tactics, but humans could think faster. They could imagine solutions that logic had not yet discovered. They could see patterns that technology missed. The human fighter wing cost the collective more losses than 3 times their number of alien fighters. By the time they ran low on fuel and ammunition, the Council forces had regrouped. The first battle was not won, but it was not lost. Earth had proven itself. But the war was far from over. The collective kept coming. Every day brought new attacks. Every day the Council forces lost ground. The hybrid defense system that had created was learning, but was learning faster. The Council was beginning to lose hope. It was then that Price made his choice. Commanded the colony ship Earth Hope. It was filled with 500 volunteers, mostly children and elderly people who could not fight. The ship was moving civilians away from the battle zone toward safe space. But safe space was no longer safe. A destroyer was approaching the Earth Hope and would intercept it in minutes. Could run, he had the speed and technology to escape, but running would only delay the inevitable. They would chase the colony ship forever. They would consume it eventually. The only way to guarantee the safety of the people under his command was to sacrifice the ship itself. Did not ask permission. He turned the Earth Hope toward the approaching destroyer. He increased the engines to maximum. Behind him, the colony was sealed. The children and elderly were in the escape pods, launching toward distant safety. In the command center was alone with his choice. The Earth Hope crashed into the destroyer at enormous speed. The collision was tremendous. The ship exploded. The colony ship was consumed in the blast. Price died with 500 volunteers, but the civilian fleet escaped. Thousands of lives were saved by the sacrifice of one human decision. When word of what had done spread through the Allied forces, something changed. The alien species began to understand what had always known. Humans were willing to die for people they had just met. Humans would sacrifice everything to protect the innocent. This was not weakness. This was the greatest strength in the galaxy. The alien commanders started to follow Foster's strategies without question. They adapted their forces to work with human unpredictability. They learned to trust the human pilots and soldiers. The defense began to work in ways it never had before. Hybrid system learned from every battle. It began to predict movements before they happened. It adjusted defenses faster than any single commander could order. The system became something new, something that combined human intuition with alien technology in ways that neither species could achieve alone. The tide of the war began to turn. Slowly at first, then with increasing speed the final battle came on a date that would be remembered forever. The collective made one last desperate push toward Earth. They threw everything they had at the defense lines. The Council forces and human forces were ready. The hybrid defense system was operating at full capacity. Creation had learned every weakness they possessed. Foster made the decision that would end the war. He would not wait for it to come to them. He would strike at their command center while they were still focused on the assault against Earth's defenses. The strategy was dangerous. It required perfect timing. It required human pilots willing to fly into the deepest part of the enemy fleet. It required soldiers willing to board the command ship knowing they might not return. But it was the kind of strategy that only humans could conceive. It was bold. It was reckless. It was necessary. Cooper led the fighter wing that would clear the path. Behind her came the boarding craft with 200 human soldiers. These soldiers were not fighting for fame or conquest. They were fighting to protect their families. They were fighting to protect their world. They were fighting because they understood that their sacrifice might save billions of lives. The passage through the fleet was chaos. The enemy threw everything at the approaching human forces, but her pilots had learned to think like humans. They had learned to see patterns that logic. They had learned to survive the impossible. One by one, they fought their way deeper into the formation. Ships exploded. Pilots died. But the formation did not break. Herself took down 7 enemy fighters in the final approach. When she brought her damaged ship back to the rendezvous point, she could barely move the controls. The boarding craft reached the command ship. The soldiers inside prepared for what they knew would be an unequal fight. But they carried something they did not understand. They carried the knowledge that they were right. They carried the certainty that their cause was just. They carried the absolute conviction that they would not fail. The soldiers entered the command ship. They fought through corridors filled with enemy forces. They faced biological weapons that had designed to consume flesh. They faced enemies that were faster and stronger. But humans had one advantage. They refused to surrender. They refused to accept defeat. They refused to die without taking the enemy with them. Commander James Hayes led the assault into the deepest part of the ship. He and his soldiers fought toward the command center. They lost half their forces, but they kept moving forward. Nothing would stop them. Nothing could stop them. When they reached the command center, they found the core of the collective. It was a living engine of consumption, a biological processor that controlled the entire fleet. It was the hunger that drove the forward. It was the intelligence that made them dangerous. James Hayes looked at it without fear. He planted charges around the core, he set the timer, and he waited to ensure that the explosion would be complete. His last act was to smile. He was a human being. He had faced the darkness, and he had not flinched. The charge detonated. The command center was destroyed. The command ship began to collapse. The fleet without its central intelligence started to break apart. Forces began to retreat. For the first time in its history, the collective was running away. The combined forces of Earth and the Galactic Council pursued the retreating fleet. They drove it back to the far reaches of space. It was not destroyed. Its forces were too spread out for total victory, but it was broken. It was beaten. It would never again threaten the civilized galaxy. 1 week later, the Galactic Council gathered in a special assembly. All the species were represented. Humans stood alongside beings of crystal and light, beings of pure energy, beings of water and thought. They had come together for a single purpose. Ambassador stepped forward. His crystal form caught the light and threw it across the chamber. But something was different about him. His voice, when he spoke, was filled with something that had not been there before. Respect. On this day, announced, we acknowledge that Earth has proven itself, not through superior technology, not through greater numbers, but through qualities that we have underestimated for far too long. Humans have shown us what true courage is. They have sacrificed their own lives to protect species they had only just met. They have created solutions that every law of logic and strategy. They have shown us that there is power in choosing to protect the innocent. Earth is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Council. More than that, humans are granted leadership roles in our defense against future threats. The assembly erupted in celebration, but the noise did not fully register with Foster. He was thinking about the cost. He was thinking about Davis and Colony 7. He was thinking about Price and his sacrifice. He was thinking about James Hayes and the 200 soldiers who had given everything to save the galaxy. Humans would be remembered now, but not as conquerors. They would be remembered as the species that chose to give rather than take. They would be remembered as the species that understood that some things were worth dying for. Foster stood on Earth 1 month later. He looked at the stars and thought about what had changed. Humanity had always had these qualities: courage, sacrifice, love, compassion. The galaxy had simply not seen them before. Now they could not ignore them. Across the galaxy, broadcast a message to all species and all worlds. His voice was clear and strong. His colors shimmered with joy and sadness mixed together. On this day, said, the galaxy has learned a lesson that will change everything. We learned that the most advanced species in the cosmos is not the one with the greatest technology. It is the one that chooses to protect the innocent. It is the one that understands sacrifice. We learned this from humans, and now the galaxy will never be the same. Foster looked at Earth hanging in the darkness of space. Cities glowed with light. Oceans reflected the stars. Billions of people lived their lives, most of them never knowing how close they had come to extinction. Most of them never knowing that their species had changed the course of galactic history. But knew, and the knowledge filled him with something that was not quite happiness and not quite sadness. It was the knowledge that humans had finally shown the galaxy who they really were, and the galaxy had finally understood. On this day, Earth's heroes had descended from the stars, and the galaxy would be forever grateful. The collective had conquered hundreds of worlds. It had never faced an enemy that thought like humans. It had never faced enemies willing to die for their beliefs. It was designed to consume. It was designed to grow and expand. But it was not designed to face sacrifice and courage. Week by week, the forces fell back. They lost ships. They lost ground. For the first time in its history, the collective was losing a war. And every day, more alien species added their forces to the cause. Not because they had been ordered to, but because they wanted to fight alongside the humans who had shown them what true courage meant. Foster watched the battle data change color from red to yellow to green. Humanity was not winning because of superior technology. They were winning because they had decided that some things were worth dying for. They were winning because they refused to accept that defeat was possible. They were winning because they understood that protecting the innocent was more important than protecting themselves. The collective had never faced this before, and now they were facing their own extinction. I am asking for total mobilization. I am asking every nation to commit its full resources. I am asking every able person to be ready to fight or serve in some way, not because I command it, but because we are choosing to protect each other. Because we understand something that the collective will never understand. We understand that some things are worth dying for. A Japanese ambassador stood. Commander Foster, if you do this, if we commit everything and fail, Earth will be destroyed. Yes, said, but if we do nothing, if we hide or surrender, Earth will be destroyed anyway. At least this way we choose to stand, we choose to fight, we choose to be something more than victims. One by one the leaders stood, each one committed their nation. Each one pledged their people. The Earth was not united by fear anymore, it was united by purpose. It was united by the knowledge that they were about to face an enemy that wanted to consume them, but they would not be consumed. They would fight, and they would show the galaxy what human courage truly meant. Worked with alien technology. Factories started producing new weapons based on designs. The United Earth Defense Force was officially created, with Foster as Supreme Commander. Soldiers trained. Pilots learned new tactics. Engineers built new ships. For the first time since humanity had evolved, the entire species worked toward a single goal. They were united by fear, yes, but also by something deeper. They were united by the knowledge that they were the only ones who could save themselves. Stood on the lunar base 3 weeks later. He looked at Earth hanging in the black sky. It was beautiful, it was small, it was everything his species had ever known, and soon it would be tested in a way that nothing had ever been tested before. He made a silent promise to his world. He promised that humanity would not fall without a fight. He promised that his species would show the galaxy what they were truly made of. The time for doubt was over. The time for heroes was beginning. Lisa and both nodded. They understood what was asking. They understood that humanity might have to save itself. But first, continued, we tell the world, we tell governments, we tell the people, we show them the signal from Davis, we show them the data, and we tell them that Earth must wake up. We are not alone in the galaxy. We are not safe just because advanced aliens promise to protect us. We must protect ourselves. The command center fell silent. In that silence, Foster made the decision that would change everything. Earth was about to enter a war that no one had prepared for. Humanity would have to learn what it truly meant to be warriors. They would have to learn that their real strength was not in machines or technology, but in the courage to face the darkness and refuse to surrender. The screens continued to glow with red warnings. Colony 7 was gone, but Earth was waking up. And soon the galaxy would learn that humans were something far more dangerous than anyone had expected. They were not conquerors or seekers of power. They were protectors, and they would die to protect those they loved.